When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be. But somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there. Hello there, everybody, and welcome to episode 37 of Join Up Dots. I'm still at the back of my garden. One of these days I'm going to be a good lad and they will let me back in my house. But at the moment I'm quite happy out here. And why shouldn't I be happy? Because I have got some great guests and I've got some amazing guests today. I've just been chatting to them off air, as we say in the trade. And it's about the first interview that I've done for many a moon that's at a good time for me. And they're actually about 4:30 in the morning. Their family are in bed. They probably haven't combed their hair, brushed their teeth or done anything remotely resembling professionalism, and that's all right because we're on Skype, so I can't really see them, but I'm going to introduce you to them because our guests today are the powerhouses behind my favourite podcast, Happen to Your Career. However, in this case, the podcast is just a small part of what is a passion-filled centre of resource for all of us who are looking for a change in our career. They quite simply believe that it's their unique path in life to ensure that we all fill our days with work that delights us. So how have they done this? Well, of course, they have a passion for the task, and they also have been in jobs and positions that have filled them with dread. Coming home exhausted, hating their bosses and seeing very little of their families, they knew that they had to do something, and we're glad that they have, because without guys like this in the world providing support and encouragement, helping with decisions, so many of us would be in similar daily situations. So let's bring on to the show to start joining up the dots of their lives, Mr. Scott Barlow and Mr. Mark Sieverkropp. How are you guys?
Very good.
Hello.
To be here.
It's
completely thrilled.
It is lovely to have you both here because you have been part of my history for quite a while. I used to listen to. I haven't listened to it for a while actually. I've been so tied up with my own life. How selfish is that? How selfish.
And knife in the heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to listen to it all the time. And I was struck once when you, in your pre-show banter that you have, couldn't quite get the grips of what the United Kingdom is all about. And I wrote you a very lengthy email. And
that is how we met, isn't it?
It is how we met, yeah.
Now.
So I sent you an email sort of breaking down what the United Kingdom is because you couldn't understand your download, your podcast download.
Right.
What was England, what was Scotland, and what were. So have you learned? If I put you to the test now, could you quote what the United Kingdom is?
Man. He's gonna make me do it, isn't he, Scott?
He's gonna make you do it, Mark.
Now I'm gonna show that I didn't read his email.
Please.
No. Okay. So England is a separate country. United Kingdom includes all of the countries, correct?
Kind of.
It includes England. It includes Scotland and
Wales.
And
getting closer.
The other one.
It is the other one. And that's funny enough what we call it over here as well. The other one. Yes. So if any of them, my downloads from the other one have just died instantly. So
That's right.
I'm
getting
mind.
hate mail now.
Yeah, absolutely. So your life is it took me by surprise actually because I didn't realise that you are still doing normal jobs. You've got regular gigs and you are balancing this powerhouse that is really creating its own sort of environment and momentum in your own time still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's we do a lot of stuff at 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning.
We do. It's yeah. This is normal. This is par for the course for us.
Can we put normal in air quotes? Is that possible?
You can do.
Nobody can see me, but I'm doing it right now.
And do you sort of roll over and just nudge Scott? It's time to get up, Scott. We have to get to work.
Anytime I get on Skype, there's already a message. Hey, call me when you're awake.
So where is life? Are you in similar areas? I believe you're in Washington. Is that right?
Yes, we are. We live in separate towns, but they're next to each other, so like 30 minutes away. So we catch up and meet in person and do meetings every once in a while, once a week or so. But a lot of stuff we still do on Skype.
So for the guys out there, the listeners out there that aren't aware of Happen to Your Career, I'm going to ask the first question that's always struck me is why that phrase? Because it kind of doesn't make sense, does it? Happen to your career. What's happened? what's going to happen. But how does happen to your career? How was that made?
So the story behind Happen to Your Career and that whole name and everything that comes with it is really about you being the change that you want to see. And I had this boss. This was back when I was in college at Eastern Washington University way back when, and I was actually working just a part-time job, and this was before my first business and everything else along those lines. But one of my bosses, he had come into the back room and he had said something to me. This was just a retailer. We were selling stuff, and he's like, "Scott, what are you doing? You need to get out there and you need to happen to something." And I don't really think that at the time he was meaning to impart life advice. That certainly wasn't the case, but it really stuck with me for some reason. Every time when I was thinking about, hey, I need to make a difference. I need to make a change in my life personally. I would think back to that situation. It's like, I need to just go happen to it. I just need to go and do whatever it is that I want to see, that I want to be, that I want to change. So later on, when we were considering names, I actually, this was even before I started the business, when I was just considering the name of a blog. It's like, well, what really puts out there that message of you've got to act to be the change that you want to see in your life, whether it's careers or anything else. And this is what we came up with.
How many did you play around with? Because it's the old thing about branding, that once you create the brand, it doesn't really matter with the finer points of what the words are. Classic example, Pat Flynn's smart passive income. Everybody talks about that as such a clever branding, but really they're just like 3 words. Now he's got the momentum, now he's got the profile, it's like inspired. So what other ones did you come up with before you went, no, it's got to be happen to your career, or happen to you career?
There was probably 3 or 4, and to be honest, I don't really remember them. They were really bad, David. They were really bad. This was the best of the worst, so went with it. But this is the only one that resonated really with what it was that I was trying to accomplish at the time.
And
by the time I got into the picture, it was already happened to your career, so I had no say whatsoever.
He had no say. Otherwise, we probably would have gotten something.
It's kind of like the rest of our working relationship, really. It's just do what you're told and sit in the corner.
Is that how it works?
Yeah.
So you are Scott's like bitch, basically. Is that what we're saying?
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, I think you could say that.
Man, I'm learning something new here.
I think we're all learning something new, guys.
I feel safe. Safe here.
I've got some more requests then, Mark.
Then why aren't you doing the things I asked if that's the case?
It's spooning time. I can see this image back in my head. This wasn't where I thought this interview was going to go, really.
This wasn't where I thought this interview was going either, David.
No. So you've got this idea. You've got happened to your career, and was it a kind of an epiphany? Was it something like, as soon as it came into your head, you thought, yes, I've got to realise this? Or was it like most things in our life, that it was just a creeping realisation that, hang on, something's pulling me in the direction that I'm heading?
It was really, I would love to say it was this epiphany. I would love to say I had this amazing idea and, like the heavens parted and, I saw a unicorn and all of these other things, and none of that happened. None of that happened at all.
Do you get unicorns
very
in heaven?
Much,
I don't think you do you?
I don't know.
What planet are you on, Scott?
It's my heaven. Leave me alone.
Yeah, I've never heard of a unicorn in heaven in all my time.
Well, now you won't be surprised when you get there.
There you go.
See, before this, you would have got there and be like, what the heck?
Yeah, what's that horse? That horse with a spear. What's it doing up here?
That's right. See, now you'll get there and you'll be like, Scott told me about this. I knew this was coming.
I'm prepared for this.
I salute you, Scott. You've helped me.
He's a sort of prophet, really.
Happen to your heaven.
Really?
That's what it is.
Happen to your heaven. Oh, dear. Yeah.
Carry on.
So what was the question again?
Yeah, it was the clouds parting and you didn't see unicorns.
Oh, yes. So, I would love to say that was the case. And it really wasn't. It was very much more a constant figuring out of what it was that I wanted to do. So this was before I met Mark, honestly. And I was evaluating different different businesses. I'd known for years that I wanted to go back to owning my own business. I had one maybe 8 years before Happened to Your Career was even conceived, and it was in the contracting industry, did painting, residential, commercial for houses and other things like that. We did remodels, and I didn't want to go back into that business. I had a lot of fun learning about business and developing it. And this was when I was a college student at the same time, but knew that I wanted to go into something that could really impact people's lives in a different way. And I've very much just started, making spider diagrams and for those that don't know what a spider diagram is, you start in the middle and you draw a connecting point, and you draw what the things that pop in your mind. They're also called mind maps. They're also called a couple other things too. But I started doing this for the things that I was really very passionate about, and the things that I really enjoyed, and the things that crossed over with that I felt I actually had some skill sets and some value. And one of these things really was focused around careers, because I'd been doing coaching for a while just on the side, and even before that, just for fun. Like somebody might go play golf, or somebody might, I don't know, watch TV for fun. This was something I was doing as a hobby, and eventually I realized that this is where I wanted to spend my time, and this is really the impact that I wanted to be able to have at helping people make transitions from where they're at to work that actually matters to them.
It is amazing when that happens, because I did actually have an epiphany. I've only ever had one epiphany in my life, and this was when I decided to quit my 9-to-5 job. And I was sitting there one afternoon pondering, and I was reading a blog online, and it didn't really have anything to do with the blog. And suddenly it was like, and the clouds did, and the hooves of unicorns coming through my office.
See, I knew there'd be unicorns.
There were unicorns in my fantasy. And it was, I couldn't actually work after that. I actually said to them, look, I need to take a half day. I need to go home. It was just like suddenly something had flipped a switch in me, and my energy just went. I was exhausted. And I went home and I thought, I've got to quit my job. I've got to leave my job. And my wife said, what are you going to do for a living? And it was like, I don't know, but I've got to do something. It wasn't the wisest.
This isn't it.
Yeah, it wasn't the wisest choice, but yeah, it was. It was an epiphany. There was clouds, and there was, white horses and everything.
Very nice.
That's amazing. That's fantastic.
So
it
Mark,
must be true if both of you saw unicorns.
Yeah. So Mark,
Yes, sir.
when you
Yes,
decided to join up with Scott, was it over a pint when you were sitting there and he said, look, I've got this idea, or was this something that once again had been sort of presented to you in dribs and drabs over a period of time?
Well, yeah, it was actually fairly quick. I mean, we were just talking about yesterday. It's been just over a year now that we've known each other, but we had a mutual friend and met up, and I emailed Scott and said, hey, our friend here says that we're doing similar things and we should sit down and chat, and we did. It's funny. It's a funny story. The first time we met, we had lunch, and I felt like I went away from the meeting thinking he's never going to want to talk to me again. I just got that impression, and that's probably an accurate impression, but he won't tell me that. Anyways, we did some other stuff.
Not accurate.
And then he just said, hey, will you help me with this Happen to Your Career stuff? And I was like, yeah, sure. So it was fairly sudden, and we were doing similar things as far as looking to speak places and build our online presence and help people and do some training and stuff. So it worked very well to join up. But yeah, he was already well on his journey, and I'm just kind of riding his coattails to success.
And I understand there's four of you. There's you and Mark. There's Scott and Mark.
Right.
There's Scott's wife, Alyssa. And there's a kind of web guy in the background, some shady character that I remember reading about.
Some shady character. So you're probably talking about Clark Buckner, who's an awesome guy.
Yeah, but
he has a couple of podcasts of his
isn't
own. He early on helped us get everything set up, but he is no longer, I guess you could say, affiliated or anything else, other than just he's a great friend.
I was going to say, we still like him. You make it sound
we still
like
like him.
You make it sound like we had a falling out or something. He's no longer with us.
Not that at all. He just helped out early on, getting everything going, getting everything set up. Was a big part of that. I don't know that I could have done some of that stuff without him. And since then he's really turned into an amazing friend, and he's doing some really cool things on his own.
We wish him well in his future endeavors.
He's still on your website, though, isn't he?
Is he?
He's still on there because I saw.
You can
his,
see we don't have a web guy now.
yeah.
Yeah, clearly.
There's 4 people and 2 of you, and I'm seeing your face now. And there's Alyssa, and there's this character that you're trying to wipe away.
We have been unsuccessful. He lingers.
He does. Right. He's a lingerer. So you build relationships quite well then, Scott, so that you can meet people and they buy into your vision. Have you always had that ability to talk with such passion that people will follow you?
You know, I think my ability has been just being genuinely interested in people and being willing to say things that other people aren't willing to say. So I have a lot of conversations with, and you know, actually this part of how I met Clark too, and you know, hung out with Clark for the first time. Yeah, that we were just talking about. I met him at a conference. I met him at, I think it was the John Acuff Quitter Conference way back when, and you know, ended up going out for drinks with him afterwards. And, you know, he was telling me a little bit about what he wanted to do. And I think I called him out on some stuff and said, you know, I don't think you're going to be able to do it in that way, you know, and I don't think that this is really what you're passionate about. Why are you pursuing this, you know, this other thing over here? And so that opened the door to a whole bunch of other conversation that was real and was meaningful. And that's what I find over and over again, is that because I'm willing to tell people how I really feel or what I really think, then it introduces to a different level of conversation. I do small talk, I guess you could say, like other people, but I don't really enjoy small talk. I really like talking about the things that are real and at the core of life. So that's just fun for me. So that's part of what causes me to have those types of conversations over and over and over again. And I've heard the phrase again and again and again. Wow, I've never told that to anybody before.
Like the unicorns, I imagine you've never said
the
that.
Unicorns. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to go on record here. I don't want to steal the interviewer spot from David here, but Scott, how do you have any friends when you call people out right away?
You know, I think sometimes I wonder that.
Well, I don't know if you caught that, David, but it's like, yeah, I just met this guy 5 minutes later, and I'm telling him he doesn't know what he's doing.
Well,
and now we're friends.
It was my next question, actually, whether he lost a lot of people on the route. Happened to your friends.
Happened to your friends.
That was the one that didn't make it.
Yeah.
I think, you know, as I look back and as I join up the dots, I think the only thing that keeps my friends actually friendly with me is because I always come from a place where I'm genuinely interested in caring about them. You know, regardless of whether I met them 13 years ago or whether it's a case where I met them 5 minutes ago, that's where a lot of my questions, that's where a lot of my call outs come from. And I think that every one of us has sort of a BS meter built into us. And we can tell when somebody's not being genuine with us, no matter how hard we mask it, you know, how great of actors we are, that you can tell just, you know, something intangible that is not, you know, it doesn't even necessarily register as exactly what it is, but you get that feeling about somebody if they're not being genuine with you. And yeah, that's something I try really hard to do, is just live my life and have conversations that actually matter, and I can be myself and be genuine. So I think if it weren't for that, I wouldn't have any friends.
You would have me, Scott.
I would have you, David.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
As long as we're on Skype.
As long as we're on Skype.
Yeah. I don't want to get too close. I really don't. So we've happened to your career. The listeners listening in at the moment, and believe me, there are millions. What would they get from happen to your career? So it's not just a podcast, is it? It's, you know, for example, every time that I talk to you guys in an email or whatever, you always say, "How can I help you?" And you're quite firm on having that as your kind of tagline, I suppose, really, on all communication.
Yeah, and I think that comes from Mark. When Mark joined early on, he'd been adamant about adding value to other people, and that's something that I completely agreed with. But then, this, how can I help you with literally every conversation? That was really very much something that I love, but was inspired from Mark. So Mark, where did you come up with that?
I'm not real sure. I just started saying it at some point. It's been kind of my mantra through my life is, I love the quote from Zig Ziglar where he says, you can have anything you want in life if you'll help enough other people get what they want. And that's been something I've really tried to live by. I totally believe that that's true. Another place that I caught it from, and it's a little bit different, but in leadership circles, Chris Licurdo, who's a good friend of mine. I don't know if good friend's a word, but we're friends online. And he always says that your job as a leader is to make other people successful. And so I've had all of these different areas where that seems to be the recurring theme of adding value and helping people. And I really feel that if we're going to build relationships and if we're going to do what we want to do with Happen Your Career, which really is, when Scott first talked to me about this, his idea was he wanted to change the world, literally. If we're going to do that, the only way we're going to do that is by helping other people get what they want. And so, David, when I have a conversation with you, my whole focus is David's starting a podcast. How can I help him with that? What can I do? What does he need? Does he need introductions to people? Does he need us to come on the show? I really don't think that's helping, David, but that's for you to determine, I suppose. But those are the types of things that I immediately try to look for is what can I do? What do I have in my life that would be of benefit to somebody else? And if I do that, then I'll be able to accomplish what I want to accomplish as well.
Have you ever had any requests come back to you that you kind of think, I kind of wish I hadn't asked now. That's too big, or that's too uncomfortable, or I wasn't expecting that?
Well, there was actually. This is a funny story. This guy followed me on Twitter the other day, and his little description or bio on Twitter said something like, and I thought it was a cool quote. He said, "Sometimes I just want to give it all up and become a billionaire." And so I tweeted him back when he followed me, and I said, "Hey, thanks for the follow, blah blah blah." I said, I love your quote. I said, "That's awesome. How can I help you become a billionaire?" And he tweeted me back and said, "Can I borrow $1 billion?"
That's a good question.
And I said, I would love to be able to say yes to that. However, I'm not yet in a position. So yeah, sometimes people do come back with things, and at that point, I think it's kind of along the same lines of what Scott was saying. It's coming from a place where you really, really care about the person. And there's been times that I've had to say, well, I'm not quite sure how I could help with that, but I could do this. And that's typically how I'll follow up with it is, just tell them that I'm not really able to do that, but here is how I think we can meet in the middle, and I can help you with some stuff. So
you just send back, you do realize I'm married.
Right, that's right.
I have that on text expander. You'll have no idea how often I have to add a nickel for every.
I can understand that. I have the same thing, and that's why I'm online now. Which it is a strange thing, though, being online. As you were saying, Mark, earlier, the chap with the leadership quote, he's a friend. Well, I say that kind of loosely. It is weird how we say that. I've got people online now that I go, they're really close friends. I've never met them once. And you kind of build up, especially doing this job, doing the podcast, I have these conversations where, because I have to do quite a bit of research about you beforehand, I start to feel like I know you. And then when I actually start talking to you, I feel like I really know you. And once I finish, I kind of think, wouldn't it be great if I could just have a beer with that person, And you do, you kind of feel like you build up this connection, which is quite strong and powerful. Mm-hmm. But actually, it's kind of almost built on sand. It's weird how relationships have changed over the years.
I think that's true, and the interesting thing is I found early in my life that how long you've known somebody, and really even if you live next to them, doesn't necessarily make them a good friend. I had this experience when I was 19. I went on a mission for my church, and I quickly found that I became better friends with people that I had known for literally 6 months than I was with people I had known my entire life. And I find that's true with everybody I meet online and the people I interact with as we're doing Happen Your Career is, if you have values or you have goals that are lined up, you may have met the person last week, but they become one of your closest friends, and they become somebody that you can talk to about anything. And I don't know how Scott feels, but I mean, David, the few times we've emailed back and forth, that's the way I felt with you, because we have the same goal. We're trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And so even though, you and I have never sat down and we've never, gone to a sporting event together, I feel like if we did, we could talk for hours because we have those same goals and we're trying to get to the same place. And that's so powerful about our passion. And that's really, as Scott and I do happen in your career, that's why we want people to get to their passion, because it does just add a depth to your life that you don't have otherwise.
Well, and it was interesting too. So Mark, you'd been, I think before we had Chris Licurdo on our show, you'd been, becoming friends with him and building a relationship for over a year, right? Prior to that?
Yeah, at least
along those lines?
year and a half, yeah.
Year and a half. And so when they came on the show, when Chris came on and, Mark actually did that interview, it was, and I was listening and I was the third party on Skype and I was just doing the recording and, I was playing techie guy, but, listening to that, it sounded like two old friends. I mean, and because that relationship was there and because, I think to Mark's point, there was so many common interests and so many things that were already there, that were already built up, that actually mattered, rather than some of the face value stuff, that like what Mark describes in terms of, hey, I might have a neighbor, but I might not have a real relationship with that neighbor. It might just be saying hi every day, and we never get into the thick of life or the things that actually matter. Where listening to you and Chris, and you guys having that conversation, it was clear that you guys had connected on the things that actually matter.
And I'm going to go on record here, David. You need to interview Chris Licurdo. So I will introduce you. I will introduce you.
And I can tell him all the weird things, that you have shared with me, and some I will make up.
You don't know
well.
the half of it.
That's right.
So, getting back to your career, I'm going to play the Steve Jobs speech because the show is based around the joining up of dots and not being able to see your path until you look back. But I've been looking at your paths. I've been on LinkedIn. I've been doing a sort of online stalking job. And Mr. Barlow, can I be honest with you? You don't seem to have been the most loyal employee. There seems to be quite a lot of jumping from one job to another very, very quickly. And I put it to you, sir. And I'm starting to learn your talent of just saying what's exactly in my mouth. I don't think that you were actually fulfilling your requirements in each of those jobs.
And you're just saying that based on the times that happen to be on my LinkedIn profile?
But bear in mind that it's the first LinkedIn profile that I've seen that says 12 and a half minutes in one job and just after lunch on another one. I've never seen that. Normally it goes into hours.
That is not true. It said 13 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So I would appreciate the accuracy. So, here's the interesting thing, I guess, the story behind the story. I think you probably could look at that and say that although before I changed my profile to really mesh up with Happen to Your Career, I was getting contacts on a weekly basis with recruiters that wanted to talk to me about HR, them not knowing that I'm not pursuing that over the long term, and I'd shifted gears. But in each one of those roles, I worked for the state of Washington for a short while. I was only there, I think, for 7 months. And I think that's probably that's probably the only one that you're referring to, in fact. That's really less than 3 years. But when I came on board with them, I was blatantly honest up front with them that I wasn't planning on staying around for a while. Yeah, and unless different opportunities opened up. And they were okay with that. They were thrilled to pieces because I came on to help them take care of some different employee situations, I guess we'll call it. Different discontent amongst the ranks. And, that was my specialty when I worked for some previous employers and in helping rebuild morale and trust within an environment. And, I came on specifically to help out with that. And, they weren't surprised when I came and talked to them 6 months later, 7 months later and said, hey, I want to move to this other thing. Here's where I see my opportunities.
Have I done you a disservice?
Have you?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so at all. I think that it is very reflective. I think I've got stuff that's all over my resume that probably isn't necessarily traditional and probably isn't necessarily desirable or well, probably desirable for some employers.
Because
Good thing you don't want to be an employee.
I honestly respect your career. I do. Because I think on the other side of the fence, I think I was too loyal. I did 15 years with the first company, and then I did 10 years with the next company, and pretty much other than a very small sort of linking bit in the middle, I just worked for two companies. And when I started, it was always a case of that shows loyalty and that shows a career path for life. But now I would say to most people that looks like a lack of ambition.
I would say so too. Having spent a lot of time in HR type roles and developing people and hiring people and doing all those types of things, I am puzzled when I see a resume that says I just spent 15 years with this one employer, and then I look at that and it's like, well, okay, so why are you making the transition now? And that's one of the things where I want to find out. I want to understand what's the story behind that, because somebody had that loyalty type mentality and something changed. Whether they were let go from a job or whether they had an epiphany or whatever it is, something changed in there. There's a story behind that. So I agree with you completely that I don't know that, the 15 years, 10 years, things like that, I don't know that necessarily shows some of the ambition that I think many organizations are looking for at this point in time, which is interesting because that shows how much work and perceptions have changed, because 30 years ago, that was massively rewarding.
Well, and I might throw in here, first off, David, you were explaining what your avatar is to us, I think pre us going on the air.
Absolutely.
And I am your avatar. I'm like exactly your avatar. So the invoice will be in the mail for that, but that's neither here nor there. But, I look at it and I'm the same way. My last job that I got, they actually asked me that question. My boss now said, it looks like you change jobs every 2 years. What's up with that? And I didn't tell them this at the time, but I heard you, David, say that you'd been at one place for 15 years and one place for 10. And in my mind, the first thing literally that came to my mind is I will shoot myself in the head if I'm in the same place in 10 years. I can't stand it. And I think it's like you said, Scott, it's a different time now. And people, they value, like you said, being ambitious and being, moving forward and wanting to do different things. It's becoming more valued than loyalty. And it's just a different world. And I think my generation, those people that are in that avatar of, I think you said what, 26 to 34 or whatever.
Yeah, 22 to 34 is my avatar.
Yeah. So I'm 22. And so I'm just kidding, I'm not quite that young, but that really is where we're at. It's every 2 or 3 years, finding something new, moving forward, being more ambitious, and really that is that's kind of the way the world is now.
I actually think that this role that I'm doing now is absolutely playing to my strengths. I think it's my unique path. And I'm now 44 years old. I think I started this path when I was 16. I remember the very first day I went to my first job, which was a large city office up in London. And I walked up the steps and I thought to myself, I'll only be here 6 months. And then 6 months went into 15 years. And even all the way through that time, there was always something I was doing. It was, and this is kind of before online. So first of all, I wanted to be a pop star. And then I wanted to be a writer. And then I wanted to be something else. And there was always something channeling my efforts away from my actual career. And it can, your second half of your life can start at any time, can't it? It doesn't have to be at 16, 22, 24. You could be 70 and suddenly have that moment where you think to yourself, this is why I need happen to your career. These are the guys for me. I'm changing direction, but I don't really know what I want to do. I just know that I don't want to do what I'm doing.
Well, it's so true because, Scott, you and we've had emails that we've got from people where they're in their 50s.
Yeah.
And I think, David, exactly what you said. I don't think anybody ever intends on staying somewhere for 15 years. But it's easy to let the time just kind of go by. And it's easy to say, oh, well, next week I'll start doing what I'm passionate about. Or next year when this is right or that's right, then I will chase that dream I've always had. And the problem with that is one day you wake up and you're 50 or 60 or 70 and you wonder, where did the last 40 years go? And you never once got to do what you really love to do. And to me, that's tragic, and that's just sad. And I'm really trying not to do that. And what we're trying to do is encourage people not to do that.
Well,
we had a
no. You go ahead, Scott.
I was going to say, quick example of that is we had early on when we first were getting started. It was the most amazing thing because people were coming out of the woodwork to be able to help us with different things, and just people that we wouldn't have expected, didn't know, so on and so forth. And I'm still constantly amazed by that and appreciative of that. But one woman in particular, she was semi-local. She's in Washington State, and she just somehow found out about us. I don't even know how exactly. And she went on and she proofread everything on the website for us. I guess in a past life she was
right,
she was a editor for a newspaper or something along those lines. And she went through our entire website and proofread and sent us all of these changes and everything. And it's like, wow, that was, I guess some people could have looked at that and said, wow, you're ruining, I don't know, whatever. But I looked at it and said, that's amazing. I would have to pay somebody a whole bunch of money to be able to do that, proofread all the copy and make corrections. And so I was just thrilled to pieces. So we started an email dialogue back and forth and just found out a little bit about her. And then as a thank you, I sent her a book. And I didn't hear from her for 6 months. And she sent me an email that referenced some of our other dialogue about, hey, it's never too late to start. You've got to start with where you're at and make the move to things that you really want to be doing. And when she emailed me 6 months later, she let me know that she'd made the decision that she wanted to take a completely different pathway. And I think she was in her 50s or maybe even early 60s. And she was going to go spend time in Africa. And she had some savings and had a plan to be able to earn some income while she was down there. But really, her heart fell into being able to help different folks for different causes in Africa. And that's what she wanted to spend her life doing. And she developed this entire plan to be able to do that and make a living at the same time. And that was just amazing to me. And that was a perfect example of what Mark's talking about.
I applaud her. I don't know this lady, but she is exactly the kind of woman that we want out there. Because, my avatar, really, that I'm aiming for, and I keep on saying this in the shows, if you're in a job and you like the job and you enjoy the people around you, brilliant. Go there and just do it better than you've ever done before, because you're going to gain so much more from it by putting all your energies in. But if you're not, and you're just getting through to the paycheck, or you're getting through to the weekend when you can go down the pub and stand in a circle with other miserable people having a beer, moaning about your situation, do something about it, because you can do something about it. And it's not as frightening as you may think. It's frightening if you look at the big picture, but then just look at a small picture or look at a big picture from a long way away. I don't know. But you just have to move forward in bite-sized chunks. What you're trying to do, guys, is change the world. What I'm trying to do is a similar thing. If I actually think about what I'm trying to do, I can't do it. It's just too big for me, and I can't see the steps responsible for actually fulfilling my dream and my requirement. So I just do one thing, and then that moves me to a next thing and a next thing and a next thing. And when I started, it was just, can I get 5 episodes out? Now I'm coming out to sort of 70 episodes and 90 episodes and all those kind of things. It's amazing what you can do just by following those dots, isn't it?
It is amazing. And we've sort of adopted this similar mentality that really you can only, the way that you change the world or the way that you do anything is one person at a time. So, when we sat down last November and we were looking at, what do we consider success for, what do we want to do? What do we, the impact that we want to have by the time the next following November rolls around? One of the things that was on there is we just want to be able to impact 10 people, just 10 people in a way that makes a significant difference in their lives. And, that was one of the goals that we have listed on here. I'm actually I'm in my home office, home studio, and we still have that paper on the wall that we wrote out in very colorful marker and everything. But, that just having that focus helps with each day. Because like you said, you start with one podcast or you start with 7 podcasts and then you make your way up to the 70 or so that you've done at this point, which is just downright phenomenal.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to play something that is phenomenal, and this is the words of Steve Jobs, and that it really does link the shows, because these are words that in their essence are so simple, but actually every time I listen to them, I come from a different angle, and generally I will listen to them and think to myself, okay, he's talking about trusting yourself and taking action. And then the next time I listen to it, I think, oh no, I can see it from a different way. So I'm going to play these words now, and then I'm going to ask you guys whether they're relevant to your life and whether you think they're relevant to all people's lives. This is Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
Because you two guys aren't just off the well-worn path, you're actually creating your own path, aren't you? Which is, in its own way, is a lot more difficult. So are those words relevant to you?
Oh my gosh. I'm listening to that and just thinking how relevant they are. That's been the story of my life. I when I was in a job that I absolutely hated, and no, hate is not too strong of a word at this point. I did hate it. I caught myself so many times, and so many people in our audience are in the same place where they absolutely hate what they're doing, and they get that. David, I don't know if you were ever in this position, but I was in the position. I know Scott and I have talked about this, and he was as well, where literally my weekend would end at like Sunday at 2:00, because at that point I started getting in a bad mood. I started literally not feeling well because I didn't want to go to work so bad. And at that point in time, it's hard to look at that and say, how is this helping me?
Mine stopped on the Friday.
But now, about 5:05 p.m.
Absolutely.
Right? Oh no, I have to go back Monday. But when you're in those situations, it is so hard to realize and to see any light at the end of the tunnel, and it's so hard to know or realize that you're going to learn anything or get anything out of this. But as I look back, as I connect the dots, as Steve Jobs says, I realize that I would not be where I am today without having gone through that situation. I'm in a position now where I get to tell that story all the time. And what if I hadn't had that horrible job? What if I hadn't had that job that I was absolutely miserable in? I wouldn't be able to connect with people now and be able to make the impact that I hope I'm having without having that sort of experience to, bind me together, I guess, and to make me a kindred spirit with so many people that we talk to. Because I can say, I know what it's like. I've been there. And that's what I would say to everybody is like Steve Jobs says, when you're in it, you don't realize how it's going to connect, and you have no idea. But the key is, like he says, is to follow your heart and do what you want to do. And if you'll do that, you'll look back and say, wow, that's why that happened, or wow, that's why I did that, or wow, that led me to this, which led me to this, which led me to this, which led me to what I really like to do and what I really love doing. And that's what we tell people is you won't always get there tomorrow, but you have to start on that path, and you have to be trying to get there. Because if you don't, you're never going to get there. You have to really be focused on that.
And quite often, your big dot, your major dot that really pushes you on, is the worst time of your life, isn't it?
It is, and I hate admitting that.
Because my big dot, and I've said this on numerous episodes, and probably on episode 1 or 2, I was a lot more tactful about this. But my big dot in life, and now I'm proceeding into my 40 episodes and 50 episodes and whatever, and I was working for a job and I liked it. It was all right. I was floating, I could do it with my eyes shut. And then my manager changed, and I had this new lady to come in who was a cow, and she was dreadful, and I just could not work with her, and my whole spirit went. And tying up with that epiphany that I had, I was sitting at the desk thinking, how can one person dictate my happiness? When she's here, I'm not happy. When she's not here, everything's fine, and I just sort of float along. And it was that realization that, hang on, I'm always going to be in this situation until I take control of it myself. That was my big dot. And once I hit that big dot, never going back, guys. If it doesn't pan out, I don't know what I'm doing, but my God, I'm going to make sure that this pans out, because this is my future.
Can I just throw in something here?
You can.
No.
That was profound silence you
No.
left there. I was pleased with that one.
I'm not afraid of the silence. But I'll jump in and cut it, I guess. But I love what you are doing, David, and I completely agree with you when you say that you have found some of those things that are your strengths that really line up, and it comes across and it shows because, when you're talking about your unique abilities or your authentic self or your natural strengths, or we call them your signature strengths over at Happen to Your Career, those are the things that, quite frankly, you can do much better than other people, and you really truly enjoy at the same time. And it's clear when I've listened to a couple of the shows, and then also my experience today, it's clear that you really truly enjoy this and are having fun and are naturally gifted at some of the things that are required to be an interviewer and a host and a podcaster, and and move other people in this direction. So I really appreciate that, as I guess you could say expert or professional, since that's kind of what we do. So nicely done, sir.
I really appreciate that. That means the world to me, because in many ways, in an environment like this, it's so fast and the content is whooshed out that you don't get a lot of feedback. I find it comes in little flurries, and I suddenly get 2 or 3 emails that come in. I think, oh yeah, okay, I'm on the right track. And we're actually changing the theme tune. The theme tune, if you go back, and they will be, it's the only part of the shows I'm going to edit off. The very beginning ones is kind of like a guitar going, "Welcome to Join Up Dance." It was a kind of chatty little
that's pretty good impression.
It wasn't bad, was it?
That was good.
Yeah, that was my who were they? Green Day. That was my Green Day impression there. And I liked the theme tune, and it was only that I started getting feedback from people who are more advanced than me, saying you're missing a trick here. The content is powerful, the content is inspirational, and you're bookmarking it with something that is light-hearted and flippant. You've got to get something which is powerful, and that's why you can hear the sort of new intros that I'm putting on now. And it's the only change that I'm going to make to the show, because I really wanted everyone to listen and hear the progression, and I wanted them to hear that episode 1 is not as good as episode 10, and episode 10 isn't as good as episode 30, and there's going to be some episodes in the middle that I miss a beat and it just doesn't quite work for some reason, but I wanted people to see the journey and go, yes, I can see that he wasn't very good there. I could be better than he was at the beginning. I'm going to give it a go. And do you find that with yourself? A lot of people that come to you looking for career advice are actually benchmarking themselves against people that are hugely ahead of them, more than people that are a couple of steps ahead of them.
Oh, yeah. I still do this. I do this. I try not to do this. Actually, in some cases, I listen to less podcasts than what I used to, because I can get myself into a funk real quickly if I'm listening to people that I consider way ahead of me. And it's like, you ask all the silly questions of yourself, why am I not there? What am I doing wrong? All those other things. And I think everybody goes through that to some degree. If you're not, then, maybe there's a different problem. But, yeah, we certainly get that in a variety of different capacities, and it's that comparison bias.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that we try to limit ourselves, though? Why? Because that is not rational. If you sat a whole room of people down and said to them, okay, I want you to be instantly as good as Richard Branson, not one person is going to go, I can do that. But actually, when they're quiet in their own world, listening to things, we all kind of think, yes, that's where I should be. That's what, I'm at this age. I should already be where Richard Branson is. I should already be where Scott Barlow and Mark Sieverkropp are. But it's not rational, is it? It can't be rational. No one can become a professional footballer overnight. It's practice, practice, practice.
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely right. And I think what it seems to happen, and I do this, and I think we all do it, like you said, is we always compare our weaknesses to other people's strengths rather than looking at what our strengths are. And, this is something that we talk a lot about in Happen to Your Career. And one of the things that we go through with people when we're helping them find out what they want to do is we say, look, you've spent so much time telling me what you don't want to do. And you're looking at what your weaknesses are and what you don't want. What you need to do is validate those things. Say, okay, yeah, I'm not good at this. I'm not as good at this as Richard Branson is. However, I am good in these areas. And it's being true to yourself and not trying to be somebody else, not trying to be, David Ralph, not trying to be Richard Branson, but trying to be the best Mark Sieverkropp I can be, and realizing that that's good enough. That's okay. And until you do that, you're never, ever, ever going to be happy. You're not going to do what you're passionate about, because I found that most of us do in our lives what somebody else wanted us to do. I mean, how many people do you talk to that they get to being 45 or 50 or 60 and they've been a doctor for 30 years, and then you find out the only reason they became a doctor is because their grandpa thought that being a doctor was the best thing you could do, and that was a prestigious job. It had nothing to do with them wanting to be a doctor. And I think so many times we hang our hat on what other people want or what other people will approve of, that we never get to do what we want to do, and we limit ourselves because of it. And we try to make people happy rather than making ourselves happy.
Here's a good question for you. I was thinking this as you was talking quite eloquently. My mind was into the next question. Now, we benchmark ourselves against other people and we contrast our weaknesses to other people's strengths. Mm-hmm. Is there any strengths that Scott's got, Mark, that you look at and you think, I would like those, and Scott the same to Mark?
Well, he's much better looking, and I wish. One of the things that really impresses me about Scott, and I'm really grateful for it, is Scott's a lot more blunt than I am. Scott is able, like we've said over and over again, to, in a very loving way, to basically say, no, that's not going to work, or no, we shouldn't do that, or you're not being honest with yourself. And I really appreciate that. That's a very marketable skill, and it's a very useful skill for being successful, and that's something that I really wish I had.
And Scott?
I think for Mark is I, and I've told Mark this numerous times, but yeah, there's a couple of things that he does. First of all, he has this insane ability to connect with different people and connect with many people, and it's something that he truly enjoys, connecting in a whole variety of different ways. So, I kind of monitor some of his social media stuff and just see his name pop up from time to time. I'm like, how on earth is he in all these places talking to all these different people and having all of these different conversations? It's like, I can barely get this one thing out on Twitter or whatever. But whether it's social media or other conversations, Mark is always connecting with somebody, because that's part of who he is, and that's part of something that he enjoys truly, and having and building those relationships, he's just very naturally good at in a variety of ways. But the other thing, this is the one that drives me insane. So this guy can put out an epic blog post in like 20 minutes, like just writing the content, and then maybe another 20 minutes or something to actually get it up and get everything else out there. And it takes me like 8 hours to put out the same quality of things. So his writing abilities are amazing. And I truly got that after he sent me the first draft of his book, Project Success, as we were getting it ready for Amazon and everything like that. That was the point in time where it really hit me as I read through that draft. It's like, wow, this guy is really good. Not only is he quick, but this guy is really good. It's just something that comes natural to him. But part of that is because he's put a lot of time and effort into practicing.
And it is...
You shouldn't have.
It's as simple as that, isn't it? It is practice. It is just down to practice.
Yes.
Well, I don't think... I disagree.
Practice
I
and
disagree
talent.
a little bit.
Go on, Scott. Go on. We're going to
if you want to be in the... if you want to be in the NBA and you are 3'9", you can practice as much as you want, and you've got a significant disadvantage. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but you've got a significant disadvantage.
I've got a lovely image of dwarf NBA. That'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
Well, that might be a whole new venture, but but I mean, you get the point that there's some things that you are naturally suited for, and there is no reason to deny those things that are you naturally suited for, especially if you enjoy them. And that's where, that's where you find those signature strengths and those things that make you authentically you. And people go through their entire lives sometimes without understanding that, without identifying that. And it's partially because it's really, really, really difficult to do that. The pain of staying in the same place and tolerating where you're at, even though you don't enjoy it, is a lot less sometimes than the short-term pain of, doing the hard work to figure out what it is that you truly can be great at, and then making the moves to get there.
Well, the strapline of the show, the tagline, is connecting our past to build our future. Because I totally believe, and after so many conversations with people, pretty much to a man and woman, they agree with me. They agree with me, Scott. Hear that? Okay. Just in case he goes the different way.
Get that right.
Yes, I'm getting the mark of Mr. Barlow here. And they all say to me, yes, when I actually hit my path, when I hit my dot, when I looked back, when I connected those dots, joined those dots, whatever, all the things that I'm doing now were the kind of things that I knew I could do. I knew I enjoyed, but because they were so easy, I didn't think I could group them together to make a career. Or the kicker, the one that really sort of gets me, is the ones that they go, because it was so easy, I didn't think I could charge for it, so I couldn't make a career out of it.
Yeah.
It goes back to, and David, I think you're hitting on a common theme here, that it seems like, and really this is what the first part of my book is about, is we limit ourselves. It's not anybody else. In this day and age, there's so much technology, there's so much opportunity. No one limits you except for yourself. It's your own mindset and it's your own limitations that you place on yourself that keep you from doing what you want to do. It's not anybody else. And once you realize that in your life, it opens up this whole realm of possibilities. I mean, the heavens open again, the unicorns peek around the corner. Is this show going to be titled looking for the unicorns in your life?
I'm going to have
Can we have that as a title?
I absolutely promise.
I think that'll get downloads. But,
we're bringing you down,
it really
Barlow.
is. That's right.
I'm okay with it.
The whole thing, all the way down to the title of the show, will be mocking you. Just so you know.
As long as it gets David the downloads.
That's it. That's the key thing.
Take one for the team.
That's the consummate. That's a consummate person of service right there. But as you realize that and realize that you're the only one holding yourself back, it's amazing what you're able to do. And it's amazing the things that open up and the ideas you have and the plans you can make, because you realize that there really isn't the challenges in front of you that you think they are. It's all in your mind. It's all in your head. You're the one telling yourself you're not good enough to be like Richard Branson. You're the one that's telling yourself that you can't charge for whatever it is that you're good at. Those are the things that are holding you back. Not that somebody literally hasn't paid you for those things or wouldn't be willing to pay you for those things. It's just in your mind. And I see that over and over again, that it's always, every time we talk to people, it's like they're stopping themselves. And if they would just, stop and get out of their own way, they would be able to do what they love, and they would have such a fulfilling life that they can't even fathom right now.
We were getting so many emails about what you're talking about, David, about having struggles connecting those dots and joining up those dots, that we ended up making a free email course to help people specifically with some of those barriers. And we didn't do that long ago, actually, and it's been pretty amazing, the feedback that we've gotten from it. But people were really struggling on looking to the past and identifying what those strengths are and how to connect those together, just like you said. And this ends up being a barrier. And to Mark's point, we only limit ourselves. So we're like, well, how can we help people remove some of that barrier? So we literally put together a course to help make that happen.
Well, I'm going to ask you about that just after this very last part, because this is the part called the Sermon on the Mic. And this is when one of you, and I'm going to choose, who should I choose, Mark or Scott? I'm going to leave it up to you guys to choose, but I'm going to send you back in time like a young, better-looking Marty McFly to have a one-on-one with yourself. And if you could go into a room and sit down next to a younger version, an 11-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 20-year-old, it could be a couple of weeks ago, or it could be like an hour ago, and you'd go, don't do it, don't go on that show.
Go back to bed, hit the snooze button.
What would you say and what advice would you give? So I'm going to play the music now. When it fades out, one of you is on the mic. This is the Sermon on the Mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the Sermon on the Mic, the Sermon on the Mic.
we choose?
I'm really interested in your answer on this. Mark,
all right, I'll do it.
Take it away.
I have to say before I start this, David, that you mentioned that most people start this by talking to themselves, and I wondered if that was a prerequisite. So I guess that's how I'm going to start too. Dear Mark, so you're in a job that you absolutely hate, and the first thing I would tell you is it changes so much faster than you think it would. I know you wake up every day right now, you're miserable. You can't wait to get home, which doesn't happen till late at night, and then you're up early in the morning again. I get it. I understand. And you just have to keep going, and you have to keep doing what you're doing. You have to keep striving to do and find work that you love. And when you look back, I promise it's going to happen so quick, and you're going to say, wow, that was quick. That I wasn't in that position that long. But as you're in that position, here's the things that I would tell you to do. These things will make your life so much easier in the coming years. Work on yourself. Do the things that you need to do to get your life in order. Learn how to live on a schedule. Learn how to plan. Learn how to connect with people. Learn how to do all of those things that don't require anybody else except for yourself. And if you'll do those things now, when you get to this next part in your life, you will have such the advantage on everybody else, because I found that the things that make you successful are not the big things. It's not making the $1 million deals. It's not doing all of those things. The things that will make you successful is being able to manage yourself, being able to manage email, being able to manage relationships, being able to plan your day and do what you plan to do. Those are the types of things that if you have them in line right now, when the opportunities come, you'll be able to take them, and you'll be able to run with those opportunities, and you will be successful beyond anything you believe. But most all, I would tell you to find people that can support you. Find those people that are determined to make you successful, that want to help you, that want to encourage you and add value to your life, and be around them as much as possible, whether that's online, whether that's in person. Be around them and make sure that you are always listening to them and always trying to help them as well. And if you will have that support group, you will find that it will come back and help you in so many ways that you can't even imagine. So those are the most important things I would tell you right now, is to keep going, keep your head up. It'll happen quicker than you want it to. Build relationships and work on yourself and do the things you need to do in order to lay the foundation for being successful.
I think that's an absolute masterclass. Do you, Scott?
I agree. That was amazing. I'm really glad I didn't go now, because I was not going to put out anything that amazing.
We both salute you. We both salute you, Mark. We tip our hat to you.
As you were.
Just before you go, guys, how can all the listeners who's sitting here and they're listening to Scott and listening to Mark, or listening to Mark and Scott, who gets top billing? Who?
Scott.
Yeah?
It doesn't matter.
It's Scott.
I say Mark and Scott.
It's always the one who
Scott and
says it doesn't matter who gets the top billing. Do you know that?
That's right. Ta-da!
Yes. So
you win.
How can people connect with you?
So you can find certainly on happentoyourcareer.com. That's kind of where everything centers around. We've got multiple websites and multiple things going on, but that's where everything centers around. happentoyourcareer.com. Or you can certainly connect up with us via Twitter, via LinkedIn. We get lots of people reaching out to us on LinkedIn. Just about any place where friends are made. You can find us there.
I prefer carrier pigeon, but Twitter will work. Twitter will work. Pigeon. The smaller bird will work, but carrier pigeon.
One of these days, you're going to get somebody sending you a carrier pigeon.
And
it's going to be weird. It's going to be awkward.
And I'm not going to know what to do with it.
You're not going to know. So, for everything that the online email course that we were just talking about, you can find that at happentoyourcareer.com under One Stop. And actually, as of last night, in fact, we just launched a membership site, The Work You Love One Stop, to be able to help people make those transitions from where you're at, with that support and with that knowledge and, with a lot of the training that we offer, to where it is that you want to go and do so. So we're really, really excited about that, and certainly find out more about that there too.
Well, I would like to have more people in the world like you two, because you really are coming from it from the right angle. Yes, you're going to be providing for your family. Yes, hopefully you're going to be uber successful, but at the bottom of it, you're trying to provide value and help people. And I think that's what it's all about, isn't it? So thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots.
You.
And
thanks, David.
For both of you, please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because that's the beauty. This show keeps on going forward and your histories keep on progressing. And as I believe, the only way to build our futures is by connecting our pasts. Scott and Mark, thank you so much.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice That Every Successful Entrepreneur Practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.